Imagine a killer disguised in the identity of one of the world's most trusted professions, a doctor, Dr. Alastair Finch, practicing as a general physician in the Northwood County region until the late 2010s, went down in history as a serial killer who systematically murdered countless patients. The story of Dr. Finch, whose elderly patients passed away in quiet homes immediately after his measured interventions, is chilling and astonishing. Before we begin our documentary, please don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel, Alastair. Finch was born on January 14, 1966, in Port Lawrence, in the Republic of Avalon. Belonging to a working-class family, Finch had a modest childhood. His interest in medicine was shaped by watching his mother die of cancer at a young age. The morphine injections administered to his mother left a lasting mark on Finch's mind. After studying medicine at Northwood University, Finch graduated in 1990 and began his career as a doctor. In 1986, he married Eleanor Vance, and the couple had 4 children. In the early 1990s, the young Dr. Finch started working as a general practitioner in the town of Cedar Creek. In his early years, he realized that the profession involved both saving lives and confronting death. Unfortunately, problems that would darken his career began to surface from the very beginning. In 1995, suspicious prescription writing attempts for the painkiller oxycodone emerged at his practice in Cedar Creek. Finch admitted to writing repeated prescriptions to obtain the drug, to which he was addicted. He was found guilty in an investigation and received treatment at a rehabilitation center instead of a prison sentence. Finch, whose medical license was not revoked, signed a commitment to continue practicing medicine. Following his treatment, he moved to the town of Hyde Park in Greater Northwood County in 1997 and made a new start as a general practitioner. Outwardly, Finch was admired for his friendly demeanor and the close attention he paid to his patients. Living a modest life with his wife Eleanor, Finch was known in his community as a respected doctor, giving the impression that he was free. Of his bad habits, Finch began to weave a silent web of death behind him as he grew his practice. Finch's true identity remained hidden for a very long time. According to official reports, he is estimated to be responsible for the deaths of approximately 250 people. From the 1990s to 2018, the vast majority of victims were elderly women who appeared to be in perfectly good health. Finch's method was shocking. He would inject his patients with hydromorphone, a legal but potent painkiller, and watch them die. He would then falsify the death certificates, signing them himself and stating the cause of death as natural. In many cases, Finch caused the patient's death during or immediately after a house call. For example, on March 6, 2015, 81-year-old Helen Croft died at Finch's clinic. Finch first declared her death a stroke, then a heart attack. Similarly, when 58-year-old Doris Miller died at her home on April 25, 2017, Finch simply told her husband, "Go and tell your wife," and left. Later, forensic examinations linked Miller's death to a high-dose hydromorphone injection. Again, on February 28, 2017, Finch visited 77-year-old Margaret Shaw at her home and lied to her daughters-in-law, claiming she had severe pneumonia. In reality, Shaw had died from an overdose of hydromorphone administered by Finch. Even this tragedy was concealed, with no ambulance ever being called. Furthermore, on July 11, 2016, 67-year-old Evelyn Reed was found dead at home after a visit from Finch. Finch had borrowed a tool from Reed's neighbor for a few minutes, returned, and the next day told them not to have the slightest suspicion about the woman's death. Whenever others became suspicious of an elderly patient's sudden death, Finch would brush it off with calm and collected defenses. Similar details were present in all these incidents. The bodies were usually taken away without a medical examination. Finch would insist an autopsy was unnecessary, and he would record natural causes on the death reports. Moreover, The wills of some of the deceased patients had been strangely altered. It was discovered that a forged will had been created for 81-year-old Clara Peterson, who died in 2018, leaving her entire fortune to Dr. Finch. Document analysis during the trial revealed that this will, prepared using forged signatures, provided Finch with a substantial inheritance. This horrific detail showed that Finch not only planned murders, but also schemed to steal the inheritance left behind by those he killed. The callousness in Finch's murders was horrifying. By the mid-2010s, the number of murders had reached an incredible figure. A wave of death unseen, even in hospitals, had arrived. The timing was also dreadful. Many killings occurred one after another on the same day, following Finch's afternoon house calls. Despite this, Finch managed to convince everyone every time. The patients' relatives trusted the comfort their doctor provided, and for years, neither the police nor health authorities noticed the atrocity. Posing as a physician who had come to save lives, Finch continued to walk among us as a monster who had gotten away with hundreds of deaths. Finch, who managed to hide his role as a serial killer for so long, had his mask suddenly fall off with an incident in the summer of 2018. Clara Peterson, who died on June 24, 2018, was a family friend of Finch's and was extremely healthy. However, immediately after Finch's afternoon visit to her home, Peterson suddenly passed away. Post-mortem investigations revealed that Finch had prepared Peterson's death report and tried to conceal unusual features of her death. Furthermore, it was discovered that Peterson's will had recently and unexpectedly been changed to bequeath everything to Finch. All these suspicious findings prompted police to take action. During the investigation, researchers examined death and appointment records on Finch's computer. Among thousands of documents, many inconsistencies were found. The fact that the deaths of so many elderly female patients were concentrated in the hands of the same doctor raised significant suspicion. The police selected 15 suspicious death cases for investigation and obtained permission for autopsies. The autopsies revealed that in every case, the deceased's body contained a high dose of hydromorphone. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that countless deaths had been recorded immediately after Finch's house calls, and the doctor was the sole witness to all of them. Asterisk, in light of all this evidence, the police arrested Finch on September 7, 2018. A search of his home and clinic uncovered the typewriter used to write the forged will and numerous suspicious records created in his patients' names. At the time of his arrest, Finch denied the charges and claimed he had done nothing wrong. Nevertheless, the evidence gathered against him was so overwhelming that his fate seemed sealed. The following months witnessed one of the most extensive murder investigations in the nation's history. Finch's trial began on October 5, 2019, at the Northwood County Superior Court. The prosecution accused Finch of the murders of 15 patients between the 1990s and 2010s. The list of victims included familiar names: 81-year-old Helen Croft, and 81-year-old Clara Peterson, as well as 58-year-old Doris Miller and 67-year-old Evelyn Reed. In court, witnesses testified that Finch had two of his patients witness a forged will by signing it, after which he killed the patient. Other evidence included the discovery of high doses of hydromorphone in the patient's autopsy reports and Finch's distortion of the causes of death in his records. Finch maintained his innocence. The judge and jury were overwhelmed by the tangible testimony and documents. On January 31, 2020, the jury returned a verdict against the defendant on all counts. Dr. Finch was convicted of 15 counts of murder and 1 count of forgery. The trial judge sentenced Finch to serve all life sentences concurrently and completely removed his right to parole. On February 11, 2020, Finch was officially struck off the medical register by the Avalon Medical Board. The painful truths revealed by Finch's capture were not limited to a single trial. The Finch Inquiry, established after March 2020, began to examine hundreds of cases surrounding the doctor one by one. The first report, published in July 2022, revealed that Finch had killed at least 218 patients between 1995 and 2018. As the investigation deepened, it was stated that this number could be as high as 250. Researchers noted that there had been some suspicious deaths since the early 1990s, and that, perhaps 459, people had died while under Finch's care. However, it was possible to reach a definitive conclusion in very few of these unautopsied cases. These reports marked a turning point for the medical world in Avalon. Finch's murders caused a great public outcry. People asked how hundreds of deaths could go unnoticed for so long. The government and health authorities took a series of measures to ensure patient safety. Firstly, the ability of a single doctor to arbitrarily approve a death certificate was prevented. Deaths without the joint approval of two physicians were now considered suspicious, and autopsies were encouraged. The question, "Do you consider the death suspicious?" began to be explicitly asked on cremation permission forms. Practices where multiple doctors worked in the same clinic were supported, making it less possible for a single general practitioner to have sole charge of all their patients. Controls over prescriptions and drug use were tightened. The tracking of drugs, especially morphine and its derivatives, began to be monitored very closely. These measures were collectively termed the Finch effect in general medical literature. The fact that even one physician could project their personal problems onto their patients in such a deadly manner made radical changes in the healthcare system inevitable. The growing crisis of confidence among the public led to a much more skeptical view of doctors and healthcare workers than before. The reality that a doctor they had seen as patient-friendly for years could actually be a murderer caused deep trauma for many. The relatives of the deceased were still in pain, seeking answers for every life taken from them. In the months following, the government inquiry reports, approval was given for the exhumation of more than 270 graves. In many of these graves, the use of high-dose hydromorphone was confirmed. The findings that wills made out in the names of the deceased were forgeries shocked many families. A news report in 2024 revealed that jewelry and valuables stolen from Finch's deceased patients had been found. Some of these items were returned to the families. The rest were sold at auction. On July 30, 2024, a memorial named the Garden of Peace was opened in Northwood. Flowers were laid by dozens of families in memory of Finch's victims. Lessons were learned even within the medical world. For example, the Avalon Medical Board set new standards for how physicians report deaths. Practices for statistically monitoring patient mortality rates in hospitals and clinics were developed. Ethics training for doctors was strengthened. These measures were also announced by drug and healthcare authorities. Colleagues all over the world used the case study of the Finch affair to review their own oversight mechanisms. The effect of the Finch case on the public was profound, because the doctor-patient relationship is built on a foundation of trust. This case shook society to its core. Finch showed the exact opposite of the healer-doctor image, reminding society of this bitter truth. Any death requires a process of suspicion and investigation. This tragedy once again demonstrated that medical institutions and judicial bodies must strengthen their oversight mechanisms. At the same time, the families who lost their loved ones understood that the shattered trust would never be the same again. The story of Alastair Finch has made us look at the profession of medicine from a completely different angle. The existence of a death machine hiding beneath the profile of a doctor from whom hope and compassion are expected opened a deep wound in the public conscience. This event revealed just how fragile medical ethics and patient rights can be. In conclusion, the Finch case proved that even in their most vulnerable moments, people are not always in control. and that entrusting one's faith in someone carries. Riss, thank you for watching our documentary. If you enjoyed our video, please press the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in our next documentary.